What's going on, everyone? Another video here for you. Been going through a lot today. Been going through a lot of feelings, a lot of thoughts, and wanted to touch base with you on some of the thoughts that I have come across today. Early this morning, I talked about forgiveness and I talked about changing your perspective of things. And right now, I kind of want to touch on that subject a little bit more, but from a different angle. Earlier, I kind of focused on how we view others, but right now, I kind of want to touch on what that means for us individually, specifically forgiveness. It's always best to forgive someone for what they did to you. Number one, because you don't want that negativity to hold any sort of influence over you, especially if you're trying to grow from it. Somebody who's going through trauma, somebody who's gone through some of the worst things possible, the one thing that you want to do is forgive, because you don't want that negative influence and that negative mindset to have a control over who you are or who you were meant to be. But here's the thing. Some of us look for forgiveness, and then there are others who feel like they need forgiveness in order to move forward. Forgiveness is a strong, strong thing. It's very, very powerful. Not only for yourself, but for the people around you as well. The only thing that I can say, and this is something that I feel like I'm struggling with right now, is it's hard to know that people don't forgive you. Even though you're able to forgive, knowing that others aren't willing to forgive you, that's a setback in itself. And I think we need to be more aware of that as well. What we're willing to give out is not always what we're going to get back. That has to be okay to some extent. Maybe some people don't realize what they're doing. Maybe some people realize that they're just not ready or not at that stage yet. And to some extent, that has to be okay. But it gets to a point where it starts to affect our inner peace. For example, when you love someone and that person loved you back and you guys shared a connection, but the relationship wasn't great and it ended on really bad terms, like the worst of terms, but one person hits that point of realization where they know that a change needs to happen. And unfortunately, it happened at the end of the relationship. Now, this one person is all about, hey, listen, I know I did this. I know I messed up. I know I should have done it sooner. I'm sorry. I had to figure myself out. I had to go through my own my own things in order to get to this point where I know that this was the right thing all along. And I'm sorry it got to this point for me to realize it. Like I said earlier today, and my earlier video, some people get so caught up in their own emotions that they're unwilling to see anything else. But they'll say, yeah, I love you. I have love for you. Everything of the sort. But you go on and you start realizing, as you start becoming more self-aware of you as a person, about who you are, what you're feeling, what you're giving out, and everything of the sort, you start noticing certain things. A text message, hey, I love you, I miss you, I hope you're okay. Hey, I love you, I miss you, just checking in on you. When you start to realize that you're not getting that same effort back, it blocks us. And I know for me personally, it really makes me wonder what this is all for. I know my last two videos, I'm all about being positive and changing your perspective and everything like that. But at the end of the day, we're all human. We're not meant to be perfect. And we're not meant to go through life living as if we are perfect. I'm a human being. I have feelings. And for me to ignore my own feelings is to ignore who I am. I spent a long time of my life ignoring my own feelings because I didn't want to feel. But now that I know that I do have feelings, it hurts. It hurts like hell. So how do you get past it? What are we supposed to do? Are we supposed to express these feelings to the person that we're feeling them for? Are we supposed to hold on to hope that maybe the feeling will be reciprocated? Are we supposed to just let go and say whatever happens, happens? The truth is, there's no right answer. Because what I do may not be the best thing for somebody else. And my views may not be what someone else would want to happen. So everybody is different in how they handle and cope with it. The only thing that I can say is that no matter what, it is hurtful. It is very hurtful because at the end of the day, if they loved you, they tell you. If they missed you, they tell you. And if they do, but don't tell you, they're choosing not to. So it's all about a choice. It's either you're going to accept someone for being a human being and for being able to make mistakes and still be mad and still have your own feelings, but at least still be able to be compassionate and caring as a human being, or you're going to choose to live with your own feelings, no matter what. No matter what anybody else says, no matter what anybody else does. You always have to remember something. 2 wrongs don't make it right. What was done to you doesn't mean you have to do it to somebody else. You're allowed to be angry. You're allowed to feel. You're allowed to be disappointed in somebody else. You're allowed to feel anything that you want to feel, but just remember, what was done to you doesn't mean that you have to do it to anybody else. It's hard to be the bigger person, and it's hard to be better than the hurt that was caused to us. But at the end of the day, it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. Now, I know some people may think, well, why do I always have to do the right thing? And I used to be the same way. I always thought the same way. But when you start realizing who you are as a person, and when you start trying to understand God's will a little bit more, you start to understand that no matter what, you always, always, always have to try and find compassion. So then we're faced with a choice. Who do we choose to be? What do we choose to do? How do we choose to act? You can make every mistake in the world and not realize that you're making a mistake because of something you're holding on to. But when you know the cause and the root of the problem, but yet you still choose to do the same thing, what does that say about us as a person? What does that say about us? When we know someone made a mistake, and when we know that this person is trying to make a change, no matter if we forgive them or not, no matter if we choose to accept the change, no matter what, if we choose to stay in their life and choose to treat them the way that they treated us, what does that say about us? I can tell you that it's not fair. And you may think, it wasn't fair what was done to me. You're right. It wasn't fair what was done to you. You're right to be angry. You're right to hate me. But two wrongs don't make it right. And if you're genuinely trying to make a change, why would you knock that? We all have to do better in some sense. We all can grow in one way or another. We have to look at what we know and what we choose. And we need to really, really look at the two and figure out if one is caused by the other, or even if there's a relationship between the two. We have to do better in some shape or form. We have to change the way that we think so it can change the way that we feel. And ultimately, change the one that we trust. God calls us to be forgiving. God calls us to be compassionate. And like I said earlier, change your perspective. View the world differently. And maybe, just maybe, you might find peace. Maybe, just maybe, You may find comfort. No matter what it is that you choose to do, just remember one thing: you're in good hands.